and welcome to our webinar on Azure hosting. Really exciting topic. So a couple of logistics before we get started. Everyone is on mute. If anyone has questions, you can enter in the chat or the questions section on the toolbar on the right-hand side of your screen. We will take questions at the end of the presentation when Chris is all wrapped up. And I may send some chats during the event. Chris has done a great job minimizing the technobabble, but if there are a few phrases that I hear him say, I might just go ahead and put that definition in the chat so that you can follow along and not be distracted. So many of our clients use the hosted platform for their private server, use our hosted platform. Private server, Sage 100 contractor, and for our multi-tenant hosting. So the Syscon platform, believe it or not, started 10 years ago, hard to believe, and it was groundbreaking at the time. We've upgraded things along the way, we've expanded our offerings, we've added security, added redundancy. It's been a great tool for us because we use it and for our clients. The world's changing, and Microsoft has put a lot of money into the Microsoft 365 and into Azure. So a few weeks ago, we covered the Microsoft 365 packages, and today we're going to cover Azure. What is it? What's the offering? Syscon, we have chosen the Microsoft Azure platform for our internal hosting. And after all our testing, we've also chosen that it will be the next generation for our hosting offering for you, our clients. So what is it? What does it mean? The clients that we already host. What does it mean for those of you who maybe aren't in a hosting environment, but you're thinking about it because you maybe have some aging equipment? Chris is going to tell you all about it. And he's excited. I do think this has become his second favorite topic. I had to put words to it. I think it's still his first favorite. So Chris, you ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
All right, then I'm going to turn this off so that everyone can look at your screens.
Great. All right. Well, welcome everybody. I'm going to also switch off my camera. We'll flip it back on at the end for the Q&A. All right. So Azure hosting coming to Syscon. For those of you that don't know me, I head up the programming departments and a lot of the technical design pieces. I get to span a pretty wide range of our services, from programming to consulting to cloud hosting to what your end users experience to our apps. So I get to have a great perspective of kind of everyone's world in the Sage and hosted and just running your business. So, and Kathy, I'm sure you all know Kathy. So for today's agenda, we're going to talk about what is Azure. Most people call it Azure. Some people call it Azure. There's, however you pronounce it's fine. How will it make my dreams come true? How is it similar to the current hosting option? What's new about the hosting option? And we'll do a live demo. So we'll kind of take it to the end, focusing on what you already know about it, and then switching into what's new. And of course, time for Q&A. So what is Azure? Azure is a suite of cloud computing services, tools, and technologies run in the Microsoft managed data centers. Basically, it's Microsoft's cloud. Most of you are familiar with Syscon's cloud. Microsoft has the same thing. Theirs is probably a little bigger than ours. It did start in 2010, which is the same year as our cloud. They have over 200 different products and services, which is obviously tons to choose from. We're going to be pretty dialed in today on what we talk about. They have data centers located all throughout the US and throughout the world. And Microsoft is investing a ton of money into their Azure platform. So they're building data centers all the time. They say they've put something like $1 billion into security research from over the last year. They really have built out some very cool stuff. So Azure hosting with Syscon. Syscon hosting, we have Syscon hosting and we have Azure hosting with Syscon. In both cases, who's in charge of the data? You are. if you're putting in a journal entry into Sage or creating a Word document or creating Excel, it doesn't really matter where it's hosted, you're going to be in charge of actually typing that stuff in. For the platform, in both cases, Syscon is going to be in charge of that. We're going to take care of all the managing of the platform, operating system upgrades and patches, antivirus, security, all that good stuff. And the hardware. Oh, sorry. This is the big difference with the Azure hosting versus Syscon hosting. So, when you're a host with Syscon, in the current Syscon hosting, it's literally on hardware we manage. The Azure hosting with Syscon, the hardware is managed by Microsoft, which has some really good pluses. It introduces some really cool technologies and options. Does mean that, you know, we are limited to some of the things that Microsoft has as well, but I definitely think the trade-off is worth it. So for Azure hosting with Syscon, it's still going to include all the good stuff. So you still have your cloud, which is actually, it looks a little more something like this. It's still going to be a cloud environment, which means you can access it when you need it, from where you need it, and you don't have to deal with any of the hardware. Or otherwise, your back office is going to look a little something like this. It still has all the applications you need. We're still going to keep the platform up to date for you. We're still going to be proactively monitoring the environment. Your data is still going to be backed up. And probably the most important one is you can still call us for support. So if you're hosting with Syscon, whether it's Syscon Classic hosting or Azure hosting with Syscon, either way, you're still going to call us for support. Every once in a while, I have to call Microsoft and actually go to them directly for a support thing. And, you know, it might be 7 or 8 calls, 15, 20 emails, and 4 or 5 days to get an answer on something that seems like a basic question. We aren't going to put you through that. We're going to take care of it. We also won't make you wait 7 days for something like that. We still have the same great hosting options. So one is the shared resource hosting. We often call this the multi-tenant environment for our, in either case. So for Azure hosting, for shared resource hosting, this is still going to be in the Syscon cloud domain. So if you're logging into our environment now, you're probably typing in to log in something like syscon-domain / and your username. With the shared resource hosting, you're actually going to use a shared VM virtual machine for your user sessions. You're able to use all the standard programs, you get the standard configurations. It's the most cost-effective way. So this is, all you care about is just Sage only. You want Sage in the cloud, nothing else. You're gonna open Sage, you're probably gonna print a PDF, maybe a print to Excel, maybe send out your direct deposit emails, and that's probably about it. So that's the shared resource hosting for those light Sage users. That really simple. The other one that's still a great, same great hosting option, which means we had it before and we'll have it with the Azure version, is private resources hosting. So you're still going to be in that Syscon cloud domain, but in this case, those VMs, those virtual machines, are going to be just for you. So everything that you log into is going to be just yours. Because of that, you're also going to have the option to add additional programs. So if you want to add Bluebeam, if you want to add Adobe Acrobat Pro, if you want to add some custom software you have, or you know, things like that, you're going to be able to add those because it's all for you. You have the option to add additional servers. So this doesn't apply to everyone, but it's really great to have this option when it does apply. For example, if you use Sage 100 Contractor plus Sage Paperless, you often will split that up into a separate VM to keep things nice and organized and keep a robust configuration. It's not always necessary. It depends on how big stuff is, but that's one of the examples. This is a great balance of cost-effective and flexible. So shared resource hosting is going to be more cost-effective, less flexible. This one's going to be a great balance. So because of that, it's definitely a crowd favorite. So what a lot of people do, and it really gets the majority of clients exactly what they need. With the Azure hosting, there's a new hosting option. So private cloud hosting. This is, you're gonna get your own private domain, and it's gonna be deployed into your own Azure tenant. So you can kind of think about this as this is the modern version of having your own on-site server. So if you were to today go out and buy your own hardware and put it in your office, you would have like full control over that. This would be going out and doing that, but into the cloud, so into your own Azure tenant. There's going to be a seamless user identity with your Microsoft 365. So when you log in with your Microsoft 365 account, you're going to get a really seamless interaction between those. And it's going to be the most flexible for setup and configurations. Pretty much you can do whatever you need to in here because it's going to be your own tenant. So you can do kind of things that are a little out of the norm. It's going to be very isolated. And you even have the option for a hybrid cloud setup. So basically connecting the Azure cloud to your on-site server. This can be really helpful if you have some things that you still want to run on site, but you also have you also want some of the benefits that are available in Azure. It's called the hybrid cloud, and it can be a great option for certain people. And then you have optional additional access for your internal IT person. So this is often referred to as co-managed IT. It is something that you do need to be careful with. It depends how much access and what you're doing in there. It can be easy for someone who's not familiar with some of these Azure services to maybe accidentally do a little damage that they weren't intending. So, when your IT person tells you that this is how you upload data into the cloud, that could be a problem. But we definitely have worked with some great IT people as well who would be able to do some of the basic or some of the standard stuff and get some access into there. So basically, the great stuff's going to be sticking around. In the new Azure hosting, you're still going to have all those great things. I would say of all that, probably the number one most important is you still call us for support. It's really the big thing. So why are we adding this now? With all that great stuff staying, why do we need to add it? Well, people are doing way more in the cloud. This was a trend before the pandemic, and then pandemic hit, and obviously it's spread quite a bit on there. The work that people are doing actually in the cloud, so it's not just that there's more people, but they're doing more demanding work. So more compute, better graphics, more applications, faster network speeds. We actually saw one program that that runs in our cloud, that program is updated, and it was around 10 times, it required around 10 times more resources after the update. So that one application was much more demanding, even though they had the same number of users. Sage itself, specifically Sage 100 Contractor, has become much more demanding. So if you remember going back to 2010 when we started this, or even just 3 years ago, Sage was running, it did not use SQL Server. So now that it's added that need for SQL Server, it's become much more demanding on what it needs from a cloud. And there's been some recent new technologies that have come out that have enabled a really incredible set of features for a new generation of cloud hosting. I think Microsoft knows where things are going. I think a lot of people know where things are going. So they've been putting a lot of money and effort into this, and some of these new features are really incredible. I'm super excited about them. So you have your people out there just asking for a little more. And some of these, you in the audience, one or two of these requests might be from you. That's okay. This Azure is going to really open the door to be able to fulfill all those more requests. So how about some new stuff? I'm very excited about this stuff. I love new things. I know not everyone gets quite as excited about new things. I know sometimes I get a little stressed. We definitely did a lot of focus on, take advantage of these new things without changing the whole world on them. I'm the person that's saying like, hey, this came out 4 hours ago. Why isn't it live yet? And Kathy's saying, hey, that doesn't have 4 years of tried and true experience. We can't use it yet. So we're a good balance for all these features to, we talk through each one and make sure that we have the right ones and have that good balance. So digging into these new features, Windows 10 multi-session. I'm ecstatic about this. This is an operating system, kind of like Windows 10, but it's for multi-session. So this is a rich and familiar end user experience. That means when your users log in, it literally looks like Windows 10. If you're in our current cloud, if you've ever tried opening a photo on a server, it always opens in like a funny program. So sometimes if you don't set a default, it'll actually open in like Internet Explorer, which is always a little funny. We've been able to use some of these like photo viewers that are reasonable, but it doesn't have that nice, just Microsoft Photos app that's on every Windows 10 computer. So Windows 10 multi-session has that because it has that Windows 10. It's a Windows 10 operating system. This multi-session part of it means that you can get the cost benefits of a terminal server. So that means more than one person can be logged in at the same time. So this is how the current cloud environment works. You have a server in our cloud and multiple people log into that same server. The Windows 10 multi-session has full support for modern apps. What applications are doing on an operating system has changed a lot in the last really 3 years, has changed a lot. And it can also run any other application that's going to run on Windows 10. So anything that you're working in there, it's going to work in the cloud. Every once in a while, we'll get a request for something to put in our cloud, and we'll look at it and say, actually, that program is not technically supported to run in a server environment. So this opens up a lot of doors there. Doesn't happen too often, but this is pretty nice. This is only available in Azure. You cannot legally, at least, you cannot be compliant and run this Windows 10 multi-session on-premise in the Syscon cloud that we have now, in AWS, and any other cloud that only can be run within Azure. So I'm very excited about this, and it is, in my opinion, a game changer. Another thing with the new Azure hosting is remote apps. So remote apps look like they're running on your local computer, but are actually running in the cloud. So they're going to have a familiar look and feel of running a program on your local computer. But all the processing stays in the cloud. So that means you can securely access from any device, and this is great for the light Sage user. Basically, it's a different way for you to launch Sage. Right now, when you open up Sage in the Syscon cloud, it kind of looks like, it's that remote desktop, and you have a separate start menu and all of that. You're going to get to see this one at the end, so I think it'll be a good view, but the remote apps is a cool additional feature. It is totally optional though. So if you like your different start menu and kind of like that immersive cloud session, that is absolutely still, you can definitely still go with that way and not use remote apps at all, or maybe have some users with remote apps and some users the other way. For some people, they're actually even running like thin clients at their office, so they would probably just go with all, they would not use remote apps at all, but maybe, for someone who's on a laptop in the field, they might. This is just kind of a screenshot of the launcher of what it looks like for these. So there's this little remote desktop. This is a program for remote desktop, but yet I have individual applications that I can launch. So when I open these up, it's like streaming just that window, just the view over to my computer. Some other great new features. It's optimized for OneDrive and SharePoint. This is actually a pretty big deal. So OneDrive, SharePoint, these have some very specific requirements, especially with files on demand. Being able to use these in an optimized fashion makes a huge difference for user experience and for costs. So you're able to save a lot on storage when this is optimized. It has crazy fast internet speeds, like outrageously fast. It has a full featured native client for Windows and Mac. A lot of people don't think, they're like, we don't really use Macs all that much, but you know, when that pandemic hit, a lot of people went home and they're like, I have a Mac at home and I need this, and you can't use the regular RDP icon on a Mac. So this is a really cool, this is cross-platform. And what I really love about it is you can just log in with your Microsoft 365 account and it's going to get you everything that you have access to automatically. So you don't need to like remember that link or go look up that link. It also has support for MFA, or multi-factor authentication, which means that there's an extra layer of security when you're logging into that those cloud resources. And you're going to automatically see the resources you have available. So you'll log into it from whichever device, your personal, your company, it doesn't matter. It's going to be secure with that MFA, and it's going to show you what you can access. We know a lot of this stuff is new, and we know that you can kind of like bypass it and get by, or you can take advantage of some of it and get a lot more out of the cloud. So we're doing all sorts of like group webinars, and so that for all your users, so that they can watch and get some tips and tricks and be able to get a lot more out of the cloud and have a better workday experience, which for an owner means hopefully they'll be more productive and make some more money. So I'm very excited about all these. I think it's going to be pretty great. For the techies, those of you that are very technically inclined, we're going to be using containerized user profiles with FSLogix. This is some incredible technology. Everything's going to be running VHDX that gets mounted to the VMs at login, and it has incredible performance with minimal additional login time, like just a few extra seconds. It's going to be load balanced session hosts. You're going to be able to seamlessly scale out those session hosts as much as you need to, or scale back if you need to. There's even some auto scaling available. You'll be able to assign those user permissions automatically with Azure AD. This would probably only apply in those co-managed IT, otherwise Syscon would be doing it. But if it was the co-managed IT, you'd be able to actually just assign those Azure AD security groups, and your users would immediately have access. And the platform we use uses the connects securely with reverse connect, also known as pixel streaming. So that is basically, those of you who are non-techies, imagine taking a cord to connect to your monitor, dragging it all the way into the cloud, and that's what this is. So a very secure way to do it. And then there's site-to-site VPNs available for your network printers. You would not use those outside of the network printers because of that reverse connect, which is an even more secure, many people think, more secure way than a site-to-site VPN. So let's take a look. So I'm going to switch over here to my desktop. So this is my computer. You can see I have tons of stuff installed. And if I try to bring up Sage, I have the installer for Sage, but I don't actually have Sage installed on my computer. So I'm going to open up and I'm going to go to my remote desktop, my Azure hosting Syscon desktop. It's going to tell me, let's get started. It says subscribe. So subscribe is an interesting term. Basically, it means log in. But I'm going to hit subscribe. I actually skimmed over. It says these resources will be available from this client, which is the program, and the start menu. So let's show you that in a second. So I have my saved accounts that are on my computer. I'm going to add another one, and today we're going to do our demo user. Gonna log in. It's gonna offer to stay signed into everything, and in most cases you would say yes. Here I'm not going to because it's purely a demo account. And it says that we are finding the resources associated. So it's literally going out to the Azure cloud and finding what that user account has access. So here I have, these are those remote apps I mentioned. And then the cloud desktop. Typically you would not have both. It'd be users either have the cloud desktop or remote apps, but I did include both for this demonstration. So now, if I go to my start menu, the next time I open up this program, it's going to have all the things I have resources to. Even better than that, if I didn't want to open this program, I can go to my start menu. I'm going to type in Sage. Look at that, Sage 100 Contractor, WVD Demo 1. That's the test user that I just logged in with. So it actually shows up in your start menu. That means you have shortcuts on your desktop or pin to start or whatever you want to do. So I can literally pin that to my start. Here it is. So I'm going to launch it from right here, and I'm going to start with the one most of you are familiar with, or anyone in our cloud is familiar with. That's a cloud desktop. So I'm going to open this up. It's going to do a little connecting like it always does. And I can log in. You can set it to remember this password if you want. I like to have it ask every time. It's a nice, makes me feel good about logging in. And some of you have seen this top blue bar before. Probably most of you have. And I have my cloud desktop. So this should look like another local computer almost, because it is Windows 10. It's got that great look and feel. I can go to my Microsoft Photos app. I can open whatever programs I need. Here's Sage, which is probably the programmer you need most of the time. You can use OneDrive, you can use SharePoint, you can use Google Chrome. It'll, same thing, you can pick your server name, you can use Windows Authentication or SQL. So logging to Sage is very much the same. And here it is. So for those of you, again, who are in our cloud now, this should look pretty familiar, but in a more, I guess, modern operating system and have that good end user feel. The tech behind this is very exciting, very reliable, very robust, but for your end users, they're just going to care. It looks and feels good. So here we have our just normal working in Sage. You've all worked in Sage, so I won't spend too much time here. So I will go down here and I'm just going to sign up. And I'm signing out of the cloud. Right from this, I don't know if any of you have ever tried to deal with switching out which computer monitors it has or anything, but I can right click this, I can go to settings, and my default settings, or I can switch this and I get some nice, do I want single display or select displays? So I can have it just one or the other. I can do all, I'm gonna go with single, start and full screen, fit to window, update resolution. All of these are great. You know what, actually, I'm gonna open this one more time. Skip down on showing one of the pieces. So I'm logging back in and I want to just do this here. So this is the view. Some of you have seen before, so I literally have two start menus. So here I have my cloud desktop, cloud environment, and this is when you're logging in this way. So pretty cool. It's going to update the resolution and all of that. It's nice and responsive. It does actually work from a tablet or phone. I don't know that I would try to run Sage from your phone. That seems seems like it's not going to be super fun. If you have like an iPad Pro, or especially with the keyboard and mouse, it's pretty reasonable. But you know, you can use it from wherever you need it to be. All right, so that's the classic cloud. Pretty great. Now here are my remote apps, and you can set up whichever ones are appropriate for you, but I'm going to open up Sage. So here it's creating that connection, and I'll log in. And this is actually literally logging into that cloud, and it happened so quick, you can't see it, but it literally logs into that cloud server and opens the program. So all of this is happening now in the cloud. When I hit connect, this is Sage. It looks like it's running locally. I have it in my start menu, but there's this tiny little, it's called a glyph, this tiny little circle in that bottom right. That means that everything is happening in the cloud. So it's literally just sending me the pixels or the video kind of from the Sage program to my computer. If I go here and I open up the job screen, it happens exactly like what you're used to. There's some jobs. I can go to my prints. I can print this to the screen. All this happening totally in the cloud. It's just sending the images essentially to my computer. So super secure, super convenient. This is awesome. I like this remote apps a lot. When I'm doing a little more power user type stuff, I do still use the desktops. If so if you're a controller or something, you're probably going to be using the desktop or the cloud desktop version or that terminal server style look. If you are project manager or maybe even a bookkeeper, your remote apps might be a good option for you, and that's something that we'll help you talk about and plan through what would be the best fit for you. So I'm going to close out of this here and let's switch back over. All right, so how do we know all this new stuff works? I mentioned probably a dozen times of this is new, that's new, this is new, and how do I know it all works? We are using all of it at Syscon. This is how we run Sage. Syscon runs on Sage 100 Contractor. For those of you that don't know, we do our billing from it. We use our FIT system. We email through it. We process payroll through it, all of that stuff. And we are actually using Azure platform for all of our Sage for our daily use. And not all of our employees are tech. So some of them, are going to be, you get a wide range for us as well. So, we roll it out for ourselves. We want to make sure that everything worked, of course, and what kind of tips and tricks are going to be there. And, remote apps are not for the power user. That really came up from our internal use of it. So, yeah. If you love it, you want in, awesome. We'll get together, do a little planning. So everyone's in a little different spot, different pieces apply to different people, and we'll get together, do some planning, make sure we know what happened first, or we know what to do first. And in a lot of cases, your first step will be move to Microsoft 365 if you're not there already. It really makes the end user experience a lot better when you're already on it, when you switch over to it. So, time for a little Q&A. Thank you everyone for hanging out, going through all this stuff. I want to open the door for a few questions.
Okay, lots of great stuff. So hopefully you've been watching the chat along the way and have seen some of the things that I've shared based on some of the technology that Chris is sharing with you, and also then how we've been using it. So I have a couple little questions here, and while I'm pulling those up, feel free to type into the chat, the questions section, anything that's on your mind, and I can bring it up with Chris. Just a reminder also that we have our basically most popular webinar coming up. It's our year-end closing webinar. It will be on Thursday, December 3rd. Let's see, it's at 1 o'clock Central Time. Yeah, thanks, Chris. 1 o'clock Central Time. It is a webinar just like this. We do have a maximum capacity we can run on these. So if you are interested, we encourage you to sign up. You can either go to the events page on our website or just call the office. We'll walk you through signing up for that. 1 o'clock Central Time, December 3rd, which is a Thursday. And we'll look at closing out the payroll and the timing. We'll talk about the January 1st, which is a Friday check date. And of course, the banks are closed that day. We'll talk about opening up the new year, all of those different things, updating your pay calcs, all of that. So hopefully we'll see you for that. In the meantime, let's see. So Chris, could you take one more stab at what is a VM?
A VM is a virtual machine. So going way back, or even just your laptop, when it's a physical server or physical machine, and it's you buy a box with all of your data, your hard drives, your memory, all of that, and that's where it runs. VMs or virtual machines probably got really popular about 12 years ago or so, maybe a little bit before that. And you can have a box or a physical server that runs multiple VMs inside of it. So it's kind of like containers of machines.
Yeah, I guess I would just piggyback on that, two different things. So for those of you who are in our hosting environments, if you've got a private hosted server, that is a virtual server. It's a virtual server that you can't go up and touch, but we have created it on what is a honking huge box, referred to as a host server, on which we can have multiple individual servers so that it's private for you, it's your login, it's only your data, it's protected, other people can't get at it. For those of you who have on-premise servers, and several of you do, you still might have some VMs, because for some of you, what we did a number of years ago is we bought you one or two huge hosts, and on there, we put your virtual servers. You might have a virtual Exchange server for your email. You might have a virtual data server. You might have a virtual terminal server for those of your people who work remotely. Those are not servers you can go touch, but they sit and live on that box that is in your rack in your office. So that's kind of two different perspectives on that.
And one of the great things about the virtual server is if a hard drive goes bad or you need to do some maintenance or power something off, you can take that virtual server and change where it physically is living and move it around, which allows for a lot more robustness and a lot better maintenance, and everyone gets that.
Back in the day, if you were running out of drive space, we had to buy more drives. So you had to have enough bays left in the physical box in order to put the drives in. Then we had to rebuild the RAID array, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Nowadays, if you're on a virtual server and it needs more drive space, as long as the host it's living on has space, we can simply apply more space or more memory to that server.
And now in Azure, I just type in the new number and hit.
Yeah, there we go. All right. Another one that came in, Chris, was the difference between opening Sage in the cloud versus going through a remote desktop. So I know for me, as we've been using it now, why would you choose one over the other? So what I love about having it in the traditional desktop view that you were showing, where you can see across the top, the blue bar, I know it's my server, is I can see all my custom Syscon programs. I've got it all there. I can minimize that view. I can move that view over to my other screen, and I can still have everything else open. So that's a great way. But what I also like now that I've been using the app is I don't have to have these screens that I'm moving around and minimizing. I can just have Sage running, and I can tell whether it's my local or whether it's the cloud one, because it's got that special little extra circle on it. So now I don't have to have these other window sessions that I'm moving around across my screens. I just pull up Sage, go look up what I need, and then minimize it and move on with what I want to do. So those are two different ways to use that. And I didn't think I'd care for the app thing, but then I found myself using it all the time. So Chris says to me, I gave most of the resources to the other one because I didn't think you'd want to use the app. I said, well, we're liking the app. So you never know how it'll end up once you start playing with it. So one other question that's come through is, does my local internet speed have anything to do with it? And I think it might be because, Chris, on that one screen you said faster internet speeds, but I think you were probably talking about how Azure is quickly going back and forth between their data sets. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so your local internet speed does make a difference. It makes the exact same difference of, the Syscon cloud versus the Azure hosting cloud. In both cases, they make a difference. In the Azure environment, they have some very cool networking things that run on the Azure backbone and all this routing that has some cool stuff, but you don't have to worry about it. It just happens, and it actually has an extra some extra perks on your connection. Or the part I mentioned about the fast internet speeds. So if you are in that cloud desktop environment, you're looking at the whole window, you have that separate start menu, and you open something from OneDrive using files on demand, that file needs to open on that cloud. And let's say it's 10 gig. A few years ago, that would be, you're going to sit there for a few hours, wait for it to open. Now with the crazy fast internet speeds and some things that Microsoft does, you hit that open, it's probably going to be like 3 or 4 seconds to download and open that 10 gig file.
Okay, so if that file is in my SharePoint or my OneDrive, so that would mean I have Microsoft 365. It means that I've got that OneDrive, which is part of the Microsoft Cloud, or I've got SharePoint files, which is part of that Microsoft Cloud, and I'm in this new Azure environment. It's going to be crazy fast for the Azure environment to go get my Microsoft stuff from the Microsoft Cloud.
Yes.
So the only problem I have is if I've got crummy internet at home, I still am going to have to get to the Azure environment. But anything Azure does inside itself and Microsoft will be fast because it's living in its own space out there. And that does remind me that even when I pull down that remote app or I'm opening those files in this Azure environment, even though it looks like I'm working locally, all this stuff is not local. It's not like I've downloaded it to my workstation, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all of that's going to stay in the cloud. The only thing coming to your workstation is the pixels to display the screen.
Okay, so even though I'm opening Sage from that app, it doesn't mean that Sage data is on my machine. It just means I've got the view as if I was in my office launching it.
Exactly.
Okay. Because we certainly wouldn't want to risk bringing that data somewhere else. So it just stays up there, backed up, safe, exactly where it's supposed to be.
You can actually limit it so it's literally only pixels are the only thing ever coming across. Most people want to allow for printing using those redirected printers, and most people like to allow for that copy paste. They have to be able to Control C, Control V.
Right.
So we do generally allow those, but even those can be blocked.
Okay, all right, yeah. When we block them, people find that double-edged sword.
Yes, they do. They call us and say, hey, why can't I copy paste?
Yeah, okay. All right, if you have any other final questions, go ahead and type them in. Looks like we're coming to the end of the questions. Again, this is Azure. Just a few weeks ago, we talked about Microsoft 365, which is not just the email, but it's also the Office apps, which we think of as Word and Excel and those things. It's OneDrive, which is kind of a local drive of data, Word, Excel, PDFs, and things that are locally. And then there's SharePoint, which can be company-wide documents that we share, and we can control who has access to them and who can open them, and they stay in the cloud and can be shared or brought down locally. So if you think about any of those things, go ahead and you can check out our Microsoft 365 webinar. I don't think it's available on demand. So if you would like to see that and you need it, send us an email, customer support or over to Beth, and we'll get you that link because it was just a webinar that we held for our clients. Be happy to share that link. Chris, I don't see any other questions to wrap up with here as we come to the end.
Well, I'm very excited about it. I think that this is really going to be, I get to work with people in all sorts of clouds across our cloud, other clients' clouds, on-premise stuff. I really get to span a really wide gambit, and I get to hear all the little, I wish it did this. And I've heard that for years, all these environments. And as we were designing this, I think that we were able to take into account a lot of things that are going to be big wins for those end users and for owners.
So this isn't really new technology. It's been out for a couple of years, but we had made a conscious decision as a company that we didn't feel it was ready for our clients yet. But in this last year, it is absolutely grown up, and it is ready for our clients, and it is an excellent choice. So with that, thank you, Chris, for putting all this together. A reminder, closing the year webinar, December 3rd, 1 o'clock. Hopefully we'll get a chance to see you there. If you have some other follow-up questions, happy to talk with you one-on-one about you. And short of that, we thank you for your time and hope you have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.